Okay, thank you, and thank you everybody for coming this morning. So again, my name is Craig Barberich, and I lead our global media practice at Zuora. And just quickly what I wanted to do today, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with Zuora, but I wanted to give you a quick overview of who the company is, tell you about some of the customers that we work with, and then talk about what do we mean by a hybrid TV everywhere OTT environment. And we'll go through that briefly. So at a very high level, just quick scan of the audience, raise of hands. Who's heard of Zuora? Does anybody know what Zuora is? Okay, good. A handful of people. So Zuora is a software company. What we do is we build modern, flexible software that enables companies to manage all aspects of their relationships with subscribers. If I were to, sum this up at a very high level, we offer subscription management software. And so in an OTT world, direct to consumer, many of you can probably guess why we're interested in this space and what we're up to. So the company was founded in 2007. We've been around for about 8 years now. Just some details on our journey. Today we have about 550 employees. We're based in Foster City, Silicon Valley. We are a venture-funded company. We just recently closed a round of $115 million, bringing our total capital to about $250 million. Today we work with over 700 clients around the world, and I'll share some details on that. Just in terms of, give you a sense of scale and size, we process about $42 billion a quarter goes through our system in terms of the amount of money and revenue that's processed. And so we are considered the leader in the cloud subscription space. Just a sense of our customers that we work with. We work across a variety of different industries. Media is one of those segments that we work with, but we also work across telecom. We work in the SaaS space. Customers that you may be familiar with, we work with Box. The gentleman from Wowza was just demonstrating that. So Box is a client. Actually, Wowza is a client of ours. And so when they're selling their services, they're selling those as subscriptions, and they use our software to manage those relationships with the customers and the ongoing relationships. We also work with large companies, GM, HP, Honeywell, and then in the media space, I'll go into some of those as well. What Zuora really began to see, and again, I know this is focused on, the conference here is on video and media, but I wanted to share sort of a wider scale of sort of where Zuora plays. What we see is we see many industries moving towards subscription. Media industry has been using subscriptions for a while, but certainly if you look at companies like GM, Schneider Electric, some of the SaaS software companies, we even work with companies like Goodmouth that sends a toothbrush a month and they do a subscription, or companies that Dollar Shave Club. So those are all subscriptions. The main point I want to make, it's interesting to us and interesting to the world, is that subscriptions help companies maintain an ongoing relationship. It's not a single transaction and then the company and the customer no longer talk to each other. Subscriptions maintain an ongoing relationship. And so Zuora has built not just a subscription management, but all the tools to help you maintain those relationships over time and build those relationships stronger. And so we touch a lot of different industries, and we touch some companies that you wouldn't even expect. We work with companies Schneider Electric, which is now, they make big HVAC heating and cooling systems put on top of buildings. They're now selling subscriptions to those to building owners. We work with GM. We manage their OnStar and in-car entertainment app subscriptions. And so GM beginning to explore more and more sort of subscriptions. Honeywell, connected thermostats, Internet of Things, using us to manage subscriptions. So what does Zuora actually offer, and what do we do? We really have sort of three main pillars to our product. Again, it's a cloud software product. We offer commerce, billing, and finance. And just to explain a little bit, the commerce component is your overall package and catalog of what you may offer. The billing component is your monthly, after you've signed up and created initial transaction. The billing component allows you to maintain that relationship on an ongoing basis, sending out monthly bills. Most of those are email or digital bills these days. And those bills become also marketing tools for you to upsell and cross-sell new opportunities. And then finally, the finance piece, which allows you to manage the overall recurring revenue business and basically understand your business and look at analytics across those businesses. To go a little bit deeper to touch on what this audience may be interested in is sort of our clients in the media and publishing space. And so subscriptions are not new to media for the most part. Magazines, newspapers, cable companies have been offering subscriptions for years. But what is new is bringing subscriptions to some of these direct-to-consumer offerings and managing those direct-to-consumer offerings. And so we work with a variety of different media companies, and I'll touch on some deeper examples of these. So we work with HBO Nordics, and so we help manage that system in the Nordics and Europe in terms of their overall subscription and their direct-to-consumer. We work with Rogers Cable. We work with RTL Group in Europe, division of Bertelsmann. We also work with, we have the 4 major papers in London all use Zuora. We work with The Guardian, The Telegraph, the Financial Times, and then The Times and The Sunday Times. And so they're all using, those newspapers are all using Zuora to manage their digital and print subscriptions. We also work with companies like Yellow Pages in the US and Canada, where they're using our systems to manage subscriptions. And then a handful of service providers to the video and media industry. Again, I mentioned Wowza. Elemental's another company that's here, uses our system. Work with companies like Ustream, another service in Europe called Oz. Uyala uses our service to manage their subscriptions. So again, we are used on the business-to-business side to manage subscriptions for these services, but we're also used on the business-to-consumer side when media organizations are interested in managing subscriptions with their consumers. So I'll talk about what we did for HBO Nordics, just to give you a sense of what we built there. And so if you're not familiar with HBO Nordics, it was the precursor to what we have here in the US, HBO Go and HBO Now. It sort of was the test bed for this idea of direct-to-consumer. And the relationship there, we were brought in after the initial launch to provide a next level of scale and global ability to sort of handle the level of demand they were seeing on the global Nordic system. And so what we built with HBO Nordics is we partnered with a company called Clearleap, which provides the underlying video delivery infrastructure. But what Zuora did is we provide an overall system that allows a consumer that comes into the system, they're interested in HBO Nordic, they're first asked to validate, are you existing cable subscriber? And so this is the TV Everywhere validation. And so first what they do is they'll enter in a cable subscription if they have it. And if they enter in that cable subscription, we'll go ahead and we'll validate that against one of about 12 cable companies in the Nordics. And so if they are an existing cable subscriber, they get access to a portion of the HBO content for free. They don't have to pay anything. So very similar to what happens here in the US for HBO Go. But if they're not a cable subscriber, they're asked, would you like to buy access to the direct-to-consumer service? And they're given an offer to buy for, let's just say $10 to buy a monthly service. They put in their credit card, and we go ahead and process that credit card, take their name, and begin to sort of set up that relationship that HBO will then use going forward. Now with that, the Zuora system does a couple things. One is we are PCI compliant, SOC compliant in terms of how we manage that credit card data, so it's all protected. But what we also do is we set up, depending on what package or what access privileges they may have, we set up entitlement rights for that user. So we also have an entitlement record for the user that's signed on, and we maintain that. So when that user comes back in a month or a day, our system becomes a system of record for maintaining the entitlement record and making sure that person can go and see the video that they're interested in. And so, again, that is the system we built with HBO Nordic. It continues to perform very well, and they continue to expand that effort in the Nordics. And so I can answer any questions about that in a second. We also work with a company called RTL Videoland. This is a company based in the Netherlands, one of the divisions of RTL. And Videoland is interesting in that they saw that Netflix was talking about entering the European market, and they began to buy up Dutch content in terms of specific language content. And so they began to create a VOD library that was both a combination of English language but also of Dutch language, and their strategy was to offer that as a competing service to Netflix in the country. And so we've worked with RTL for about 18 months now to build out a subscription video service where, again, somebody logs into the system. It's not connected to the overall cable system at this point. It's a sort of separate SVOD system. But what's interesting here is you come in, you buy different levels of video access. So to simplify it, I'll just call it bronze, silver, gold. Those are different price points. And so again, you sign in with your credit card. You sign up for access at a certain level to access different content. And then Zuora processes those credit cards. We begin to set up a billing relationship. We have the financial tools to manage it. What's also interesting is that RTL, on top of a subscription video service, has added the ability to buy individual movies. And so as a movie comes out, a first-run movie, let's just say you want to offer Avengers or one of the movies that's out right now, and you want to buy it for $5.99. We also process those single movie runs for the company. So we're not just doing the subscription, but we're utilizing the customer record and the customer credit card to actually do transactions on top of that subscription. And so that's a combination of an SVOD service and a movie purchasing service. Again, Zuora managing the overall relationship there and logistics of that. Third example and final example is just Rogers Cable. We are the system of record. If you're not familiar with Rogers Cable, they're one of the largest cable companies in Canada. And we've been working with them for about 18 months to build out a system separate from their cable system in terms of what they're offering. It's Rogers Cable in October began to offer an NHL package where they were selling access to all the NHL games directly over the internet. And so they have the exclusive rights to distribute that content across Canada. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to set up a separate system to manage the billing relationships for those offerings, but they wanted to also connect back into their existing cable system, again, to validate if somebody was a cable subscriber. And what they wanted to use that data for was to set up different pricing for the NHL offering. And so what we built for them and what we set up is we created a system that when you first come in and you're interested in NHL, we ask you, are you a cable subscriber? And again, this is the TV everywhere part of this hybrid equation. It says, are you TV everywhere? Are you an existing Rogers Cable subscriber? We built a connection to their legacy system. We go into their existing CRM database for their cable system. We validate if they're an existing paying subscriber. We validate at what level they're a paying subscriber. So how, what level, what have they bought, what have they purchased? And then based on that data, we offer certain pricing to the consumer. So if they're an existing customer, they may actually get it for free. If they're a customer of Rogers Cable, but maybe not for video, but maybe just for broadband, then they need to pay for the service. But the service may be at a certain price point, different from somebody that's completely has no relationship with Rogers. And so we're dynamically setting up pricing based on data that they have about the customers, offering different price points, and then we're completing that transaction for Rogers and maintaining that data and offering it as an OTT service. And so again, this is a combination where Rogers wants to support its existing customers and is doing everything it can to do that through pricing, but then on top of that service, wants to come to market with a direct-to-consumer offering. If you're not a Rogers Cable subscriber, you can still buy NHL hockey and you can still get access to that. This system we've also rolled out to a system they called Show Me, which is a competitor to Netflix in Canada. And so we do the underlying transactions and billing for the Show Me relationship as well. One more point about Rogers is we don't just manage the transaction, we look at their CRM data, but after we do a transaction, we also take all the financial data and all the data about customers, and we move that back into their legacy financial system and their legacy CRM system. So in a sense, we are, call it a modern layer on top of their existing system to allow them to do some of these new vertical services, but we do support their existing legacy systems and make sure that that's the system of record at the end of the day. And so that's important for bigger companies that have those systems in place. Just quickly, what does this look like? And this is sort of a general diagram when you think about the overall architecture. And so Usually when we're building these systems, what we see is there's usually a marketing component, which is your direct email, your email marketing component where you're sending out offers. There's a Zuora, we call it relationship business management, is the category that we have begun, analysts have begun to call what we're doing, because you're not just managing billing and subscriptions, but you're managing an ongoing relationship. And so the Zuora tool fits in there. There's an online video publisher, OVP, where they're providing the underlying infrastructure for video delivery. And then there's usually a support system where if somebody wants to call up, has an issue, or they want to do self-service and change their subscription, upgrade their subscription, how are they managing that? And so what we've done is what I've outlined here is just to say these are the type of systems we're putting in place for these hybrid TV Everywhere authentications. I put a few logos on here, companies that we work with closely. We work with Adobe on their Adobe Pass and entitlement, so we're actually tied into that in terms of validating using Adobe Pass to validate cable subscriptions, and then we use that again to set up free pricing or a paid-for offer. We also tie into, we work closely with Salesforce on both their CRM system in terms of capturing sales leads, but also they have a very successful support system as well that we use. And so a self-service support system, we're actually natively built into Salesforce. And so if somebody accesses their system, if a consumer comes to access their consumer record through the Salesforce support system, they want to make an upgrade or a downgrade to their pricing, that's all done natively inside of Salesforce and then flows directly into Zuora. So we are part of that overall architecture and ecosystem. And so again, then connecting from a financial standpoint, Zuora does provide a full subledger rollup, and so we have some elaborate tools. Some of the companies that I've mentioned have been just amazed by the depth of our financial software that we have. And so in terms of analytics, analyzing RevRec, tax issues, we do that on a global basis. We currently support about 160 different currencies, and so we're not just a US-based company, but we've helped companies roll out globally and offer the service in multiple different currencies, supporting multiple tax codes around the world. Just quickly, at the heart of what we do is a subscriber identity, and this comes to the relationship. I think if you're thinking about building an OTT service or about building a TV Everywhere service, what's interesting to us as people think about, should I launch on Apple TV, should I launch on Google, one of the things just to realize when you think about doing that is that you don't get access to the customer data. And so what we provide is if you're interested in building your own OTT service, your own hybrid here, what you really get in working with Zuora is access to the data about consumers. And so that data becomes important because that's the relationship you're building over time. And so you maintain the relationship, you have the chance to upsell them, to cross-sell, offer different services. Just to, Zuora is compatible across different channels, and so we're desktop, mobile. Our platform supports a variety of different channels that you will offer your OTT service on. Built into our system is the ability to identify trends in the financial buying data, and so you can see certain geographic profiles, certain demographic profiles that are buying certain packages, and so we provide those and allow you to pull them out through analytics and help you upsell, cross-sell additional services. And I guess that's sort of, to add on that, we believe that financial data is one of the most underutilized pieces of data. I've been at a couple sessions here, people talking about data utilization and click streams and what people are viewing. We actually provide a wealth of data around the financial aspects in terms of what people are buying, again, tying that to geographic, tying it to demographic data, tying it to seasonal trends, and allow you to use that data to improve your business. Last slide, and then I'll take some questions, is just, one thing about subscriptions and the way that we look at the world is that subscriptions are not the difference between sort of an old world of thinking about financing and the Zuora view is that in the old world, most of the financial tools were set up to manage an individual transaction. You completed a transaction, that a transaction was closed, it was put into your database, and a month later you did another transaction. And if you wanted to pull all those transactions out of the system, you would need to sort of have some common identifier, and you'd need to use a data analytics tool. In our view, the customer is actually at the center of the view, and so everything the customer does is tied to what I like to think of almost like an open invoice. And that invoice is having things added to it, deleted from it over time. And that open invoice, or that open amending that financial relationship could take, you could look at data over 6 months, you could look at data over 2 years, you could look at data over 10 years. And so what you begin to see is these graphical trends of how people are buying, what they're doing on an individual basis. You can then roll that up into, again, geographic or product-based analytics as well to see the buying trends over time. And so much different is that we maintain an open relationship on the finance side so that you can understand that data and look at that data further. So with that, let me take any questions or from the audience. Any questions? Sure.
Since you have access to such wealth of information regarding like OTT services, are you seeing that is it growing? I mean, in terms of buy, people actually are really spending money on OTT services, or are they just kind of, trying them out and then, suspending the subscription? Because there's a lot of, it seems like a lot of proliferation of it. From your view, do you see like
Yeah.
really a growth segment?
We clearly see it as a growth segment, just to share it. I mean, there are people, to your point, that will sign on and then we'll see them churn within 6 months. But I'd say the majority of the individuals that are coming on board are maintaining those services, at least from our point of view and the customers that we work with. It's just, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're selling not to directly to consumers but to resellers,
Sure.
can you support child-parent relationships within the accounts?
We can. There are some complications to that, but we can support child-parent relationships. And in fact, it's an area that we are looking at in terms of both on the B2B side and the B2C side. There are some interesting scenarios there that we want to support better. But at a base level, we do, but we certainly are working to add some more there as well. Other questions about OTT or? Okay, well, great. Let me, we can do the raffle, and